What happens when you give ordinary, everyday people total power over somebody else? Do we manage to stay true to who we are, or does the situation itself completely change us?
Well, to explore that, we're going to dive into one of the most famous and, let's be honest, infamous studies in the entire history of psychology. We're talking about the Stanford Prison Experiment. It was this really bold attempt to find an answer to that exact question.
So picture this, it's 1971. A team of psychologists over at Stanford University, led by a guy named Philip Zimbardo, had this big question they wanted to tackle. When you see abusive behavior in prisons, what's really driving it? Is it something about the people themselves, the guards and the prisoners? Or is it the prison environment, the situation, that's the real problem?
So, to figure this out, they did something pretty wild. They built a fake prison, literally, in the basement of the psychology building. Then they got a bunch of college students, all totally healthy, psychologically normal volunteers to participate. And here's the absolute kicker, the most crucial part. A simple coin toss decided their fate. Pure chance. One flip, and you were a guard. Another, and you were a prisoner. No rhyme or reason to it.
Now, the instructions they were given sounded so simple, right? Guards, your job is just to maintain order. Prisoners, just follow the rules. But everything about the environment was set up to push them into these roles. The guards got all these symbols of power, the uniform, a whistle, and these reflective sunglasses that made it impossible to see their eyes, creating this wall of anonymity. The prisoners, though, they were systematically stripped of who they were. They had to wear these awful smocks with just a number on them and a chain bolted to one ankle. I mean, think about it. A constant physical reminder that you're powerless.
And, for the first day, it was almost awkward. Kind of like they were all just playing dress-up. The guards were fumbling around, not really sure how to be intimidating, and the prisoners didn't really feel like prisoners. It all just felt like a game. But yeah, that feeling did not last long at all.
The whole thing just spiraled into chaos, and I mean shockingly fast. By the end of just the first day, you could see the guards were really starting to get into their roles. Then on day 2, the prisoners fought back. They staged a rebellion, barricaded their doors, and that's when things really took a dark turn. The guards' response was extreme. They blasted them with fire extinguishers, stripped them naked, and started using all these psychological tactics, like putting some prisoners in a privileged cell to turn them against each other. From there, it just got worse. The guards' abuse escalated like crazy, and you could just see the prisoners becoming more and more submissive, helpless, just emotionally broken.
And look, this wasn't just them being stressed out. This was real psychological torment. These were college students who were literally breaking down. They were showing signs of extreme anxiety, deep depression. They cried. They begged to be let go. And still, the experiment kept going.
And this gets us to what is maybe the most terrifying part of this whole thing. The line between playing a role and living that role it completely vanished. These weren't students acting like guards anymore. They were guards, coming up with these truly cruel and inventive ways to break the prisoners down. And the students playing prisoners? They weren't playing anymore either. They became prisoners, just internalizing all that helplessness. The simulation wasn't a simulation anymore. It was their reality.
You have to remember, this experiment, it was supposed to run for 2 full weeks, 14 days, but they had to pull the plug after only 6. Just 6 days. Why? Because the situation had just become too dangerous, too psychologically damaging for everyone. A line had been crossed and there was absolutely no going back.
All of this led Zimbardo to coin a term for what he saw. He called it the Lucifer effect, and the idea is pretty profound. It's this theory that good, ordinary people can be turned into perpetrators of real evil, not because they're bad apples to begin with, but because you put them in a bad barrel, a situation so powerful and toxic that it just completely overwhelms who they thought they were.
So what's the big, uncomfortable truth we're left with? Well, it's pretty chilling. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, anyone can become cruel when you give them unchecked power. And on the flip side, anyone can become helpless and submissive when you strip all that power away. The biggest takeaway is this: the situation you're in might actually be a much better predictor of how you'll act than your own character.
And that leaves us with a really heavy question to think about. Now, it's important to say, this experiment has faced tons of criticism over the years for its ethics, and rightly so. But this central puzzle, that's still with us. So think about your own life for a second. Your job, your family, your social circles. How much of your behavior is really you, and how much of it is just shaped by the situation you've been put in?